Good morning, students. Welcome you all once again in the CA final classes. And today we are going to talk about Ind AS 116. Today we will continue Ind AS 116 as a second class. So, friends, in the last class we discussed that in accounting standard AS 19 is applicable in Ind AS 116 is applicable, which is counterpart of IFRS 16. And prior to that, globally IAS 17 was there and India Ind AS 17 was there, right? So friends, then we discussed why this standard was changed, why we are capitalizing right of use asset and why we are crediting lease liability. Then we discussed the scope of the standard, that there is a negative list which is given. This standard is applicable to all the leases except few leases which are in the scope of other standard, right? Then we discussed the contract. What is meant by a lease contract? And we understood that there are four pillars of a lease contract. Number one, there must be a right to control the use of an identified asset over a period of time in exchange for a consideration. What are the four pillars? Number one, there must be an identified asset. Number two, there must be a transfer of right to control the use of an asset, use of an identified asset. Number three, the lease term has to be there. Number four, lease payments has to be there. Consideration has to be there, right? And friends, we discussed what is meant by identified asset. We discussed for considering an asset as an identified asset, number one, it has to be explicitly or implicitly mentioned in the contract. Number two, the rights, the supplier means the lessor should not have a substantive right to substitute the asset throughout the period of use. Means, number one, it has to be explicitly or implicitly mentioned in the contract. Number two, lessor will not be able to replace the asset during the lease term for his own benefit, for his own purpose. Okay, so lessor उसको change नहीं कर सकता, asset को replace नहीं कर सकता अपने benefit के लिए, right? But if the lessor is replacing the asset for lessee benefit, for example, there was a car lease and car met with an accident, and now lessor is replacing that accidental car with another good car. So whether lessor is getting benefit or lessee is getting benefit by this replacement?
Lessee.
Lessee is getting benefit. So in this case, will you say that the lessor has a substantive right to substitute the asset? Answer is no. Why? The rights will be substantive when two conditions will be satisfied. Condition number one, lessor will have a practical ability to substitute the alternate asset, and lessor is economically benefited by doing so. Okay. So if the replacement is due to on the happening or non-happening of some future event, then it is not considered as a substantive right. Okay. Friends, we did so many examples on that. And we discussed the meaning of right to control the use of an asset as well. In right to control the use of an asset, we discussed two conditions. Condition number one, what we discussed, condition number one is the benefits by using the asset. The benefits by using the asset pertains to all the benefit from using the asset should pertain to the lessee, right? So when you use the asset, what sort of benefit you will receive? So when you use the asset, you will have an economic benefit by using the asset, by holding the asset, or by subleasing the asset. Okay. Probably if you are using the asset, you will have some primary output. For example, if you have taken a car on a lease basis, so you are traveling by car. Okay. There are some byproduct also by using the asset. If government is giving some incentive, right, or some byproduct are producing from the machinery, so that should belong to you. Okay. Plus any other benefits by using the asset. Okay. If there are benefits from ownership of the asset, so that will not belong to the lessee, of course. Why? Because it is the lessee, it is not the owner of the property. Okay. So number one, the economic benefits should pertain to the lessee which are arising from using the asset. Number 2, right to direct the use of the identified asset should belong to the lessee, right? What does it mean? It means that it is the lessee who will be taking a decision that why and for what purpose, how and for what purpose the asset is going to be used, right? How and for what purpose the asset is going to be used. It is the lessee who will be deciding that, right? The decision will be taken by the lessee. What happens if that how and for what purpose the asset is going to be used? It is predetermined. Means before entering into the contract, the lessor and lessee has already discussed. They have agreed. Okay. So it is predetermined that how and for what purpose the asset is going to be used, right? The decision about how and what is predetermined, then the lessor should not have a right to change the operating decisions. The lessor should not have a right to change the operating instructions. Okay. If it is predetermined and still lessor have the right to change the operating instructions in future, then you cannot say that the right to direct the use belongs to the lessee. Is that clear? Is that clear?
Yeah,
I
clear.
think in the last 6 minutes, you got a power pack revision of the first class. Yes?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Now shall I move forward?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, very good. So we did so many questions, right? Around it, we did so many questions. Friends, now let's discuss the concept of inception date of the lease and commencement date of the lease. What is meant by inception date and what is meant by commencement date? Let me explain with the help of an example. I have a house in Lakshmi Nagar. Okay, Lakshmi Nagar is a place in Delhi. So Mamta came to me in the month of February, and Mamta told me that, sir, I want to come to Delhi for completing my chartered accountancy course, completing my CA course, and I will come in the month of April. Okay. So I am searching for a accommodation. So I told Mamta that I have a flat and this flat will be vacated on 31st of March. And we are discussing on February, in the month of February. Let's say 15th of February. So Mamta told, sir, I am okay. And I will be happy to, occupy this flat by 1st of April, on 1st of April, right? And on 15th of February, she has discussed with me all the major terms and conditions. And she has ensured that I should give the flat to her. Okay. So she asked me, sir, what is the rent? I told her 20,000 rupees is the rent per month. And she is happy to give me 20,000 rupees per month. And she agreed. I told her that, 1 month advance rent will be there and 1 month security deposit will be there. And she has given me the security deposit of 20,000 rupees also. Means when she came to me on 15th of February, she has discussed all the terms and conditions, all the important terms and conditions for the lease, right? And this flat, she will occupy from 1st of April. And she has agreed, she has discussed all the terms and conditions on 15th of February. Now my question is, what is the date? What is the inception date of the lease and what is the commencement date of the lease in this example? Mamta, what is the inception date and what is the commencement date?
So 15 February is inception dates and commencement 1st of April.
Yes, very good. So inception date of the lease is the date. It's the earlier of the date of a lease agreement or date of the commitment by parties to the principal terms and condition of the lease. To cut a long story short, inception date is a date on which either the agreement is entered or the principal terms and condition has been agreed. Okay. So on this date, the parties will identify a lease. Is it a lease? So on inception date, the lessor and lessee will identify whether it's a lease contract or it's a supply contract. Okay. So what you will see to check whether it is a lease contract or not, you will see whether this asset is an identified asset. For example, when these airline companies are entering into contract with the aviation authority for using the space at the airport, on the inception of the date of the lease, they identified that it is not a lease to be covered under Ind AS 116. Why? Why? Because it lacks the definition of identified asset, because airport authority being a lessor has a substantive right to substitute the asset. Okay. So on the inception date, the parties will determine whether it is a lease. Number two, lessor will classify the lease into finance lease or operating lease from the lessor perspective. You remember I told you from the lessee perspective. So this Ind AS 116 has been dramatically changed for the lessee accounting, but for the lessor accounting, it is substantially same. So from the lessee perspective, there is a single lease model. There is no classification of operating lease and finance lease. But from the lessor perspective, the lease has to be classified into finance lease or operating lease. From the lessor perspective, it has to be classified between the finance lease and operating lease, right? From the lessor perspective, it has to be classified in between the operating lease and finance lease. So on the inception date of the lease, you will identify is it a lease contract, and you will also classify finance lease or operating lease if you are the lessor. But as a lessee, will you classify is it a finance lease or operating lease?
No,
Why no?
because Ind AS says so.
Because in Ind AS 116, from the lessee perspective, there is no concept of operating lease and finance lease. Okay? Right, Sanjay?
Yes, right.
Yes. Now coming to the commencement date of the lease, as rightly mentioned by Mamta, that commencement date of the lease is 1st April. So commencement date of the lease is a date on which the lessor makes an underlying asset available to the lessee, right? So I have made my fleet available for Mamta on 1st of April, right? So this date is known as a commencement date, right? This date is known as a commencement date. So if the lessor has provided the underlying asset, if the lessee has received the underlying asset, then on this date, the parties will identify the lease term. That what is the lease term? Why it is important to identify the lease term? बताओ, लॉजिक से बताओ, why it is important to identify the lease term?
To find the right of use asset value.
To determine the value of the right of use, right? To capitalize right of use. And what is right of use? It is present value of future lease rentals. If you don't know the future, how will you compute the present value, right? If you don't know, your future is 5-year lease term, 6-year lease term, 10-year lease term, because because this present value concept is a time value of money concept. This present value concept is a time value of money concept, right? If you know what is your lease term, then only you will be able to determine, you will be able to identify, compute the present value. Second, initially recognize the lease. So the recognition of the lease, the recognition means accounting entry. Recognition means accounting entry will be passed in the books of the lessor and the lessee on the date of commencement of the lease. On 1st of April, the lessee and lessor will pass an accounting entry for this lease. The lessee will capitalize. The lessee will recognize right of use asset, and lessee will recognize lease liability. Is that clear?
Yes, clear.
Absolutely clear.
Absolutely clear.
Very good. So will you be able to remember this example which I have taken for Mamta? On
Yes.
15th February, she came to me and she agreed all the terms and condition between me and her, between a lessor and lessee, the terms and condition was agreed. And on the date of commencement, the accounting has to happen. So what kind of error student or chartered accountant made in the question? Let me tell you. The question will test your knowledge. And in the question, two dates were given. In the question, it will be given that ABC Limited is an entity which is exploring the new office space, right? And they went to DLF. They went to DLF and they inquired about the new office space on 1st April 2024, right? The DLF told, DLF Limited is a real estate company. DLF told that the space will be available. DLF told the space will be available because this property is under construction and this space will be available. We have already started the booking and this space will be available after 1 year, that is on 1st April 2025. Okay. So the company has agreed all the terms and condition with DLF and the company has also given the advance to secure the space with DLF, right? And it is given that the future lease rentals are, the lease term is 5 years, the future lease rentals are 1 lakh rupees per annum. You know what error a student or chartered accountant make? Instead of passing an accounting entry on the commencement date of the lease, which is 1st April 2025, they are passing an accounting entry on 1st April 2024, which is inception date of the lease, which is wrong. On the inception date of the lease only, identification has to happen. Is it a lease contract? Number two, from the lessor perspective, again, identification needs to happen. Is it an operating lease or finance lease? That's all. No accounting will need to happen. So the present value calculation will start from 1st April 2025, right? So when these two dates are given, there should be an alarm which should ring in your mind. Is it inception date or is it commencement date? The accounting has to happen on what date? On the
Commencement date.
commencement date. Will you be able to remember this concept?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Yeah.
Sir, but I have a doubt.
Yes. Yeah.
What will happen if we get right to use before commencement date?
What will happen if you get right of uses? So if you get a right of use, it means underlying asset is available for you. So then commencement date will be shifted, na?
Okay, sir.
So let's continue the example of Mamta which I have taken.
Yes, sir.
While we have agreed that from 1st April, she will occupy the space, but my tenant has vacated the house on 15th of March. Okay. And so I am becoming greedy that I will lose my rent for 15 days. So I told Mamta, listen, Mamta, so my house is vacated. If you are interested, then I will start the rent by 16th of March. And if you want to use this space, you can use the space, right? I can give you the key. So then Mamta came, she took the key from me while she came on 1st of April. But on which date I have made this house available to her? If I have given her key on 16th of March?
16th of March.
16th of March, right? So in this case, Bibu, what is the revised commencement date?
Then it will change to 16th April.
Then it will change to 16th of March. 16th of March. Because the meaning of commencement date is a date on which lessor will make an identified asset available to the lessee. मैंने तो available करा दिया. In the second example of DLF, while the agreed commencement date was 1st of April 2025. But DLF has done the construction on the fast track basis and DLF has completed the construction on 1st January 2025. and they have started giving the possession to the land to the tenant also. So in this case, DLF has hand over this premises on 1st January 2025. So this commencement date will become 1st January 2025. As simple as that, right? So the accounting has to happen on first. Accounting has to happen on the which date? Accounting has to happen on
Commencement
the
date.
commencement date. बस इतना ही याद रखना है, ये एरर होता है, ये गलती होती है. Should I capture this example on my Excel file also, if you want, or should I continue?
Yeah, continue, sir. It's understood.
So what about others? Should I capture it in Excel file?
No, you can continue.
Okay, yes. Friends, now let's come to the one of the very important leg, right? What we talked about right to control the use of the asset. We talked about what? Identified asset. Now we are talking about the period of time, means lease term. What is meant by lease term? Friends, the lease term are of 4 types in this case. The lease term is a non-cancelable period. Lease term is a non-cancelable period of lease, right? Which starting from the commencement date. So lease term starts from commencement date or inception date? Commencement date. Lease term starts from the commencement date, right? And it also includes the rent-free period provided by the lessor to the lessee. For example, have you heard about the rent-free period concept? Have you heard about the concept of rent-free period?
Yes, sir. Suppose if we opt for the 5 years, the lessor will give another 6 months or 3 months as a rent free. And those period we need not pay any rent. We can utilize that period.
So friends, just give me a minute. Give me a minute. Yes. So you're absolutely right, Saminathan. For example, Big Bazaar or Reliance Fresh. Let's take an example of Reliance Fresh. Reliance Fresh wants to open a store in a mall, right? In Ambience Mall. Ambience, there is a contract of Ambience Mall. There is a contract of 5 years. And Ambience Mall also used to give 6 months rent-free period for the as a fit-out period. Because all these big stores, then they need to do some furniture and fittings. Okay. They need to renovate. They need to, make the look alike for all the outlets. So they took around 5 to 6 months for the renovation. And in the 5 to 6 months, they are not able to sell. So what these malls and the big corporates offices, what they are doing, they are giving some rent-free period to help the tenant. So this Ambience Mall has given a 6-month rent-free period plus 5 year of non-cancelable lease term, non-cancelable lease period, right? So in this case, what will be the lease term? Tell me. In this case, what will be the lease term?
It would be excluding rent-free period.
It is including rent-free period. Sanjay, tell me one thing. What is meant by rent-free period? In the rent-free period, rent is free.
Yes.
Means no rent. But tell me one thing. Even in case of a rent-free period, whether that premises is available to the lessee or not.
Yes, it is available.
It is available means commencement date has started.
Yes.
Commencement date has started.
Yes.
So from the commencement date, first 6 months is a rent-free period. After 6 months, the rent will start. And after 6 months, the period is 5 year, non-cancelable lease period. So your lease term includes non-cancelable period as well as rent-free period. Your lease term includes rent-free period also.
Right.
Means you have to do the discounting. For example, let's say the rent-free period is 1 year and the rent start period is after 1 year for next 5 years. So commencement date is assuming 1st April 2025 is a commencement date. Financial year 25-26 is the rent-free period. And from financial year 26 to financial year 31, the rent payment period is there. Non-cancelable period is there. So when you will do the accounting for right of use asset and lease liability, you have to do the accounting from the commencement date.
Yes.
And what is the commencement date? 1st April 2025, right?
Yes. Right.
So in this case, tell me one thing in this case, 1st April 2025, right? Premises available to the lessee. Okay. Rent free period is 1 year. Okay. Rent start from 1st April 2026 for 5 years, for 3 years, let's say. Okay, for 3 years. Rent is payable at the end of the year, for rupees 1 lakh, right? Determine the commencement date, lease term, and the recognition date of ROU and lease liability, and amount also. सब पूछ लिया, right? And amount also. ठीक है? How many questions are there in this question? How many questions are there in this question, friends?
5 questions, sir.
5 questions.
5 questions are there in this question. Okay. So first, what is the commencement date? Tell me. What is the commencement date?
1st April.
What is the commencement date? Neha, what is the commencement date? Neha, what is the commencement date?
Sir, 1st April 2025.
1st April 2025, right? So commencement date is not the date from where the rent started. Commencement date is a date when the premises is available to the lessee, correct?
Yes, sir.
Very good.
Yes.
What is the lease term, Neha? What is the lease term? 5 years, 3 year, 4 year, what is the lease term?
Sir, 4 years.
4 year. Lease term is equal to non-cancelable period plus rent-free period So what is the lease term? Lease term is how much, Neha?
4
4
years.
years.
Sir, 4 years.
4 years is the lease term. And the recognition date of ROU and lease liability. What is the recognition date? कब से accounting start करेंगे?
Commencement date 1st April 2025.
Commencement date 1st April 2025. Then amount also. Tell me what is the value of ROU and lease liability. Prepare the schedule. Computation of
Present
lease
value of
liability, which is present value of the lease rental, computation of present value of lease rentals. Assuming the discount rate is
10%.
10%. Okay. Yes, year. अब तो आप लोग एक्सपर्ट हो गए होंगे निकालने में. ईयर, देन अमाउंट, देन प्रेजेंट वैल्यू फैक्टर, देन प्रेजेंट वैल्यू, ईयर 1 2 3 4. Yes or no?
Yes.
In the year 1, is there any amount in the year 1?
No.
No, sir.
It is zero. Rent free period है ना? It is zero. Year 1 there is no amount, it is zero, right? Year 1 it is zero. Year 2, what is the amount? 1 lakh. 1 lakh. Yes?
Yes, sir. 1 lakh from second year, third year, fourth year.
Yes, 1 lakh from the second year, third year, fourth year. What is the present value factor in the first year? On the commencement date, you need to see the present value factor on the commencement date.
One.
For this amount which has to be paid by end of the first year, 0. What is the present value factor? 1 divided by 1.1. What is the present value factor at the end of the second year? Today, sitting on today, what is the present value today for the rent which I am going to pay after 2 years? Yes or no? This is the second year end payment.
1
right?
divided by 1.1 ka power.
Divide by 1.1. Divide by 1.1. So have you understood this? On the commencement date, the first payment, which is at the end of the second year, the first payment present value factor is for the second year, right?
Yes.
है ना?
Sir.
So second error students make while doing the calculation, they do सीधा from the first payment, which is at the end of the second year, they do the calculation this divided by 1.1, which is 0.909. Correct?
Correct.
Right, sir. I also thinking to ask this question to you, but you clarified this. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So 226007, this is your total present value of the future lease payment. So my dear friends, it's not about ratification. It's not about rota learning. It's about understanding the concept. So have you understood that we are doing the accounting on the commencement date, right? And what is the commencement date? When the asset is available to the lessee. Doesn't matter. It is a rent-free period, but there is a period. The asset is available. Asset is in the possession of the lessee, right? So that will also be considered as a lease term. And what will be the impact? The impact, you have seen this, because the accounting has to happen on the commencement date and the first year is the rent-free period. So what will happen? You have to do this accounting. Second year, third year, fourth year rent payment has an impact. Had it been not the rent-free period, then this 82,645 would have become 90,909, right? Okay.
Yes.
So, but here the second year present value factor is going to be used because of the first year is a rent-free period. So these are the impacts. That is why you need to understand these things. Okay. So what is the accounting? What is the accounting? Accounting on 1st April 2025. क्या accounting होगी? Tell me the accounting entry.
ROU assets to lease liability.
Right of use asset account
The ROU.
debit to lease.
Listen.
Is this clear with clarity?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Is this absolutely clear with clarity?
Yeah, absolutely clear.
Yes, very much
Yes,
clear.
sir. Very much, sir.
Okay. So friends, now let's again go back to the PowerPoint presentation. Friends, lease term is equal to non-cancelable period of a lease, which includes the period beginning from the commencement of the lease and includes the rent-free period provided by the lessor to the lessee together with both. Now there are two more aspects, right? So from commencement date, there is a non-cancelable period, rent-free period. There are two more aspects. And what are those two more aspects? Non-cancelable period plus rent-free period plus optional renewal period. If the lessee is reasonably certain to exercise the renewal period, plus optional termination period if lessee is reasonably certain not to exercise the termination period. Ulta hai, right? Sir, non-cancelable period, we understood the period in which the lease cannot get cancelled. And if the lessee wants to cancel the lease, the lessee has to pay the full money to the lessor. यही मतलब होता है ना non-cancelable period का?
Yes.
This is the meaning of the non-cancelable period, correct?
Yes.
This is the meaning of the non-cancelable period. Okay. Friends, non-cancelable period plus rent-free period plus optional renewal period if lessee is reasonably certain to exercise the renewal option. For example, 1 year is the rent-free period. 3 year is the non-cancelable period. So total period is 4 years. Now, in the agreement, lessor also provides the renewal period of 2 years. There is an optional renewal period, right? And lessor says that if you will renew the lease, I will charge the lease rent at 25% lesser than the market rent. If the market rent is 1 lakh rupee, I will charge 75,000 rupees. Okay. And the lessee business is growing like anything. And lessee has also done a lot of leasehold improvement. जैसे आप ऑफिस लेते हो तो ऑफिस में रेनोवेशन भी तो करते हो ना, लीजहोल्ड इंप्रूवमेंट भी करते हो. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So the lessee has done a lot of leasehold improvement. Lessor also wants to give some discount to the lessee if lessee will renew the lease in future. Now tell me, having said that these two situations are there, these two factors are there, don't you think there is a reasonable certainty that the lessee will exercise the renewal option?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So these are some facts and circumstances which indicate that the lessee is going to be reasonably certain that the lessee is going to exercise a renewal option, right? It is reasonably certain. So friends, in this case, 1 year was the rent-free period, 3 year is the non-cancelable period, and this 2 year is the renewal period. Whether it has to be taken in the consideration of lease term?
Yes, sir.
Answer is
Yes.
yes. Optional renewal period is also required to be added if the lessee is reasonably certain to exercise the renewal option. Plus optional termination period. What is meant by optional termination period? For example, 1 year is the rent-free period. 3 year is the non-cancelable period. So what is the total period? 4 years. The lessee and the lessor has given a lease term of 5 years from the commencement date. The lessor has given a lease term of 5 years from the commencement date, right? And lessor told, for the first year, you are not required to pay anything. For the next 3 years, you are required to pay 1 lakh rupees every year. And after completing this 1 plus 3 year, while the contract is for 5 years, but after paying a rent for 3 years, you can walk out from the contract without any penalty. Means if you want to vacate the premises, you can vacate the premise. Okay. There is no penalty for vacation. There is no penalty. Means the last year means the 5th year is a optional termination period. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Optional termination period है ना, अगर वो terminate करना चाहे तो कर सकता है.
Yes.
तो नॉन कैंसिलेबल पीरियड कौन सा है? 3 साल ही है ना नॉन कैंसिलेबल पीरियड. नॉन कैंसिलेबल पीरियड मींस पीरियड इन विच ही कैनॉट टर्मिनेट, ही कैनॉट कैंसिल. He has to pay the full rent for 3 years. So
Yes.
non-cancelable period plus rent-free period plus optional renewal period plus optional termination period. So in this case, the last year, the 5th year is the optional termination period. So optional termination period is also required to be taken into consideration of lease term if the lessee is reasonably certain not to exercise the termination option. The lessee has done a lot of leasehold improvement. The lessee has done a lot of leasehold improvement. The lessee has spent a lot of capital expenditure in renovating that premises. So don't you think, given the chance, the lessee will be happy to continue that? Yes?
Yes,
Yes.
sir. He will continue.
So there is a high chances that the lessee will not avail the termination period. अगर lessee termination period avail नहीं करेगा तो क्या होगा? That optional termination period is also taken into consideration for calculating lease term. Right? So I hope this is clear to everyone. So my dear friends, your lease term is equal to non-cancelable period plus rent-free period plus optional termination period plus optional termination period. ये सही है? क्लियर है सबको?
Yes,
Clear.
sir.
Very much clear?
Yeah, very much clear.
Yes, sir. Very much clear, sir.
Yes. So friends, this is a very lengthy standard. Believe me, this is a very lengthy standard. And I am explaining this standard with a lot of examples, okay, so that everything is clear in your mind, okay? So nothing should be clear from your mind. And I would request that please keep your full focus, full attention on this standard, because this is a sure short standard from which you can expect minimum 8 to 10 marks question, right? You can expect 8 to 10 marks question. This is a very important standard from real life perspective and from examination perspective. This is a standard if you will come to me for the interview, if I will hire you, if I will call you for interview when you become a chartered accountant, right? I will ask a question on Ind AS 116 definitely in the interview panel. Definitely. If you are coming for an accounting profile, or if you are coming for a financial reporting profile, balance sheet profile, or if you are coming for audit profile, I will definitely ask the question on Ind AS 116 and Ind AS 115. Definitely. So friends, this is a very lengthy standard, very important standard, sure short standard where the question will come for sure, right? And that is why you can see on the Excel file, I am giving the conceptual example. Then I'll take you on the ICAI examples and the case studies. Okay, like for this example, if you will see this example after 3 months, everything will clear to you. Everything, that what is the relevance of this rent-free period, right? That your rental had started from the second year. Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Now let's discuss some more examples on the topic. But we understood that lease term is equal to non-cancelable period NCP plus rent-free period RFP plus optional renewal period ORP plus optional termination period OTP. Okay.
Yes.
Now let's discuss this example also. Ambience Mall Limited entered into a contract with Haldiram Limited to provide a space for outlet on a lease basis for 6 years. Do you know where is the Ambience Mall?
Gurgaon.
Gurgaon. One of the largest mall of Haryana, and I would say the top 10 malls of India. Right? Ambience Mall Limited entered into a contract with Haldiram Limited to provide a space for outlet on a lease basis for 6 years. So total period is 6 years. The initial 6 months will be a rent-free period, and further 5.5 years will be a non-cancelable period. And if any party defaults, they have to bear the rental cost up to this period. The lessor has also provided a lease renewal option for a period of 2 years and agreed that in this 2 years, the rental cost will be 20% less than the market rental. What is the lease term with respect to Ind AS 116? बताइए.
8
What is the
years.
lease term? क्या होगी lease term?
8 years.
8 years, sir.
Why 8 years?
Sir, rent free 6
Rent-
months, non cancellation 5.5 and 2 years ORP. Optional renewable.
Sorry.
Rent-free period, non-cancellation period 5.5
Yes.
months, 5.5 years,
And
and lease,
optional renewable period
optional lease
up
renewal period 2 years.
Yes. Lease term. Your lease term is equal to, first of all, non-cancelable period, NCP. Non-cancelable period, NCP. And before that, let me write RFP, our rent-free period. Okay. Because initial period is rent-free period. This rent-free period can be in between also, at the end also. Okay. So this rent-free period not necessarily will always be at the beginning. RFP, rent-free period. Non-cancelable period, and what is this? Optional renewal period,
Renewal
right?
period.
Optional renewal period, ORP. ORP. Optional renewal period, ORP. So what is my rent-free period? 0.5
5
years.
years.
What is my non-cancelable period? 5.5 years. And what is my renewal period? Optional renewal period, 2 years. And why we are saying that this optional renewal period has to be taken? This has to be taken only when the lessee is reasonably certain to avail the renewal option. This has to be taken only when the lessee is reasonably certain to avail the renewal option. Okay. Right? To avail the renewal option. So what is the total term, friends? What is the total lease term? The total lease term is
8 years.
lease term is 8 years. Lease term is 8 years. Okay. Very good. Now let's discuss another example. Ambience Mall Limited entered into a contract with Haldiram Limited to provide a space for outlet on a lease basis for 10 years. What is the total period?
10 years.
10
10
years.
years.
The initial 6 months will be a rent-free period, and further 5.5 year will be a non-cancelable period. So initial 6 month is a rent-free period, and further 5.5 year will be a non-cancelable period. And if any party defaults, they have to bear the rental cost up to this period. The total period is 10 year. 0.5 is rent-free. 5.5 is non-cancelable. Means what is the last 4 years?
Optional termination.
Optional termination period. It means after 6 years, the lessee can terminate the premise without any penalty, the lessee or lessor. In the last 4 years, the lessee has the option to terminate the lease by giving only a 1 month notice. The lessee has incurred a huge leasehold improvement in this premises. What is the lease term with respect to Ind AS 116?
10
10
years.
10 years.
10 years, because he has done a lot of improvement on the leasehold. Definitely, he will not exercise the termination option.
Yes. So what is my lease term? My lease term is a non-cancelable period plus rent-free period plus optional renewal period plus optional termination period, right? So what is my lease term? These three. Rent-free period, non-cancelable period. Is there any optional renewal period in this question? No.
No, sir.
No. Then
Yes.
it is not there. Then your optional termination period.
Period.
Optional termination period. OTP. This OTP is not one-time password, right? This is an optional termination period. Only when the lessee is reasonably certain to not to avail the termination option.
Early.
ठीक है, इसमें उल्टा है, not to avail, right? इसमें not to avail. So what is my termination of period? 4 years. So since the lessee has done the lot of leasehold improvement, so lessee will not exercise the termination option. Lessee will not exercise the termination option. So what is the total period? The total period of the lease is 10 years. I hope it is absolutely clear to all of you.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Yes.
Is it clear?
Yes, clear.
Completely clear,
Yes,
Completely
sir.
clear.
right? So this lease term is equal to NCP plus RFP plus ORP plus OTP. Clear, correct? Okay, now friends, let's move to the next example. Determining the lease term. Let's discuss this from the ICAI study material. Okay. Entity ABC, just a minute. Yes. Entity ABC enters into a lease for equipment that includes a non-cancelable term of 6 years and a 2-year fixed price renewal option with future lease payment that are intended to approximate market rate at lease inception. So in this case, there is a non-cancelable period of 6 years and there is a optional renewal period of 2 years also. And the renewal will happen on a market rent. There are no termination penalties or other factors indicating that entity ABC is reasonably certain to exercise the renewal option. What is the lease term?
8 years.
Sir, in this case, 6 years, sir, because there is a reasonably certain that to exercise the renewal option.
See, 2-3 things are written here. Number one, 6 year is the non-cancelable period. For sure, 6 year will be there. 2 year is the optional renewal period. So you need to check whether lessee is reasonably certain to exercise the renewal option. Whether lessee is reasonably certain to exercise the renewal option, right?
No, sir.
So in this case, first of all, the renewal is happening at a market rent. Whatever market rent will be there, that will be the renewal rent. Okay, number one. Number two, in the question, it is written that there are no termination penalties, right? If the lessee wants to move, no penalty. Number three, it also says that there are no other factor which indicate that this entity is going to reasonably certain, this entity is reasonably certain to exercise the renewal option. It is written in the question कि कोई reasonable certainty भी नहीं है. So will you include the optional renewal period?
No,
No,
no.
sir.
Answer is
No,
no.
sir.
You
Not
need to
include.
include the optional renewal period only when there is a reasonable certainty will be there. Right? Reasonable
Yes, sir.
certainty to exercise the renewal option will be there. Then only you can take the optional renewal period. Otherwise, no. Otherwise, no. Correct?
Yes,
Clear?
clear.
Okay. Yes. So friends, scenario B. Let's come to scenario B. Entity XYZ enters into a lease for a building that includes a non-cancelable term of 8 years and a 2-year market priced renewal option. Means renewal के time पे जो भी market price होगा वो rent लेगा, right? So non-cancelable term of 8 year and a 2-year market priced renewal option. Before it takes possession of the building, entity XYZ pays for leasehold improvements. Entity XYZ pays for leasehold improvements. Means this entity has taken the possession of the building, and before taking possession, this entity has done a lot of leasehold improvement. Okay. So 8 year is the non-cancelable period, 2 year is the optional renewal period, right? We don't know reasonably certain or not to exercise the renewal option. It says that it has done some leasehold improvement. The leasehold improvement are expected to have significant value at the end of 6 years, at the end of 8 years. And when this 8-year period will be over, still the leasehold improvement will have a significant value, right? Means the life of the leasehold improvement must be beyond 8 years. Okay.
Yes.
And the company will not take along with the leasehold improvement, the company, this tenant will not take along. Okay. ले जा सकते हैं क्या साथ में? If
No.
it is non-movable furniture, can you take it along? Answer is no. And that value can only be realized through continued occupancy of the leased property. So this value can be realized only if the lessee will continue to using the asset. So what is the lease term in this case?
10 years, sir.
10 years, sir.
Why? Why 10 year?
These are the factors, sir, indicate that XYZ will reasonably certain to exercise the renewable option of 2 years.
Very good, Bibhu. Very good. These are the factors which indicate that there is a reasonable certainty that XYZ will avail the optional renewal period, and hence the period lease term is 10 year. 8-year NCP plus 2-year ORP. Okay. Whether everyone is clear on this part?
Yes,
Chitra,
clear.
Mamta, Neha, Leela.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yes. Everyone is clear. Very good. Very good. Yes. Scenario number C. Entity PQR enters into a lease for an identified retail space in a shopping center. Okay. In a shopping center. The retail space will be available to entity PQR for only the months of October, November, and December during a non-cancelable term of 7 years. This entity PQR enters into a lease for an identified retail space in a shopping center. Okay. Okay. Friends,
Yes.
the retail space will be available to entity PQR, to the tenant, to the lessee, for only the month of October, November, and December during a non-cancelable term of 7 years. So the term is 7 years, but this underlying asset is available for how many months every year?
3
months.
months each year for 7 years, 21 months.
3 months in every year.
Yes, sir.
Have you seen this practically? Have you seen this practically?
Yes, sir.
Have you seen the Diwali Mela? Have you seen there are
Yes.
at the time of Diwali, there are there are some what would I say? There are some stores, yes, which they are keeping their stall. They are keeping their stall in the mall for 2 months or 3 months, and you must have seen the Tibetan or Chinese. They are coming with a woolen stole in some cities only in the winter season. Right?
Yes.
They occupy the space only in the winter season. Correct? Only in the
Yes,
winter
seen.
season. So likewise, this company has entered into a contract with the mall shopping center that I will occupy 3 months, this particular space, identified space. This particular space I will occupy in the month of October, November, December. You have to give me in the month of October, November, December for the next 7 years, this for these 3 months. Okay. Right? Non-cancelable term is 7 years. Okay. The lessor agrees to provide the same retail space for each of the 7 years. What is the lease term in this case? What is the lease term? Lease term
21
is
months.
21 months. Lease term is 21 months, right? So
Yeah,
at the commencement date, the lease term is 21 months. The lease term is 21 months, 3 months per year over the 7 annual period as specified in the contract. That is a period over which entity PQR control the right to use the underlying asset. And VESIB, what is the lease period? The lease period is non-cancelable period. What is the non-cancelable period? 3 months every year plus rent-free period. Whether 9 months is a rent-free period?
No, sir.
no, sir.
9 months is not a rent-free period. The rent-free period comes into picture when the premise is available. So since the premise is not available for 9 months, in addition to this October, November, and December, except this October, November, and December, for 9 months, this shopping center is giving this space to some other party, not to this party, right? So for 9 months, this is not an identified asset. Even this is not an asset. This is not an asset, okay, for the lessee. So this is the lease term is the 21 months is the lease term. Okay. Illustration number 16. I hope it is clear to everyone. Shall I move forward?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Lease term termination clause. Right. Friends, this is very important. Termination clause. You must have seen in your lease contract, the lessor and lessee both have a right to terminate the lease. The lessor and lessee both have a right to terminate the lease by giving a 1 month notice. Yes or no?
Yes.
Generally, both the parties have a right to terminate the lease without any major penalty. The term ends there and the contract remains no longer enforceable. Okay. If both the parties have a right to terminate the lease without any major penalty, then optional termination period should not be taken into consideration of lease term. Right? Because both the parties have a right to terminate the lease. Okay. So if both the parties have a right to terminate the lease, then optional termination period should not be taken into consideration. If only lessee has the option to terminate the lease, then what you will do? Then what you will do? अरे क्या होगा अगर लेसी के पास सिर्फ राइट है तो टर्मिनेशन का?
Include in this term, lease term
If
period.
lessee only has the right to terminate, then you have to see whether lessee is reasonably certain to not to exercise, not to avail the termination option. Then you need to see the reasonable certainty, right? So if both the parties have a right to terminate, don't take optional termination period. If the lessee has the right to terminate, please take that termination period also into the lease term. If lessee is reasonable certain that he will not going to exercise the termination option. We have seen two examples, right? Ambient small example and that example. Okay. Illustration number 16. If only lessor has the right, lessee don't have the right to terminate, only lessor has the right, then from the lessee perspective, tell me, if lessee don't have the right, from the lessee perspective, what is a non-cancelable period? The total period, right?
Yes. Yes,
So
sir.
let's say there is total 10-year lease period. And in the total 10-year lease period, in the last 4 years, only lessor has the right to terminate. So what is the total non-cancelable period for lessee?
10 years.
10 years. So if both the parties have a right to terminate, don't take the optional termination period. If the lessee has the right to terminate, please take the optional termination period if lessee is reasonably certain to not to exercise the termination option. If only lessor has the right to terminate, then of course there is no termination period for the lessee. Then the non-cancelable period includes the term covered by the option to terminate. Right? Is that clear?
Clear.
Clear, not clear?
Clear.
Yes, sir. Clear, sir.
Suppose the term of a contract is 10 years and the non-cancelable or lock-in period is 6 years. The lease term shall be as follows. If the termination option is lying with both the party, let's go right to left. So termination option is with both the party. So what will be the lease term? If it is with both the party, then the termination period will not be considered, right? So lease term will be 6 years only, because after 6th year, either party can terminate the contract without the consent of the other party, and hence the contract is not enforceable after 6th year, only in case there is insignificant penalty for termination. If the termination option is lying with the lessee, then the lease term shall be 10 years, assuming reasonable certainty to not to avail the termination option. Because after expiry of 6 years, though the lessee is not contractually bound till 10th year, that is, the lessee can refuse to make payment anytime without lessor permission, but it is assumed that the lessee is reasonably certain that it will not exercise the termination option. Hence, though there is no enforceable obligation from lessee's point of view, right, beyond 6 years, but basis the said assumption, the lease term will be considered as 10 years. If the termination option is with lessor only, then तो lessee के पास कोई right ही नहीं है ना. Then the lease term will be 10 years. Because even after 6 years, the lessee would be contractually bound until 10th year. That is, lessee cannot refuse to make the payment till the expiry of the contract, and also has the right to use the asset until 10th year, unless lessor terminate the contract. Unless lessor terminates the contract, right? Clear? Is it clear?
Clear.
Yes, sir.
Very much clear. Okay, so let me put this on the Excel file. Let me put this on the Excel file, guys. Yes. Concept. Termination rights. Okay. If lessor has the termination right. If lessor has the termination right. If lessor has the termination right, then so the termination period is not relevant to the lessee, right? If lessor has the termination right only. For example, the contract is for 10 years. 10 years. And in the last 4 years, only lessor can terminate the lease without any termination penalty. So in this case, what is the lease term? In this case, the lease term for lessee will be, what is the lease term for lessee? It will be
10 years.
10
10
years.
years.
Second, if lessee has the termination right only, then the termination period will be covered. The termination period will be covered in the lease term when?
Reasonably certain not to
When
exercise the termination
there is
option.
a reasonable certainty
Not to terminate
To-
the contract.
not to terminate, not to avail or exercise, not to exercise the which option?
Termination of.
Option. For example, the contract is for 10 years. In the last year, the lessee can terminate the lease without any termination penalty. The lessee has done huge leasehold improvements. The lessee has done huge leasehold improvements. Okay. So in this case, what is the lease term?
10
10
years.
years.
The lease term for lessee will be 10 years. Second example. The contract is for 10 years. The last year, the lessee can terminate the lease without any termination penalty. The lessee has not done any significant leasehold improvement, and the rentals in the last 4 years seems to be higher than the market rentals, and the rentals in the last 4 years seems to be higher than the market rentals due to the escalation in rentals every year. Batao, what is the lease term?
6
Then
years.
it will be 6 years only, sir.
Why?
Because it is clear that he will not terminate the contract at the
He
end
will
of
not going to exercise the termination. He will not going to. He will be going to terminate the contract. He will avail the termination option, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So the lease term is 10 years. I hope with these examples, you guys will be able to remember the concept, revise the concept, and then example, and then ICAI study material. If both the parties has the termination rights, then if both the parties have the termination right,
Then
6
only
years.
the non-cancelable period will be called lease term.
so if lessor has the termination right, only the termination period is not relevant to the lessee, right? There is not relevant to the lessee. There is no termination period. There is no termination period to the lessee, correct? Here, if both the parties have the termination right, then termination period will not be considered. Termination period will not be considered for lease term. For lease term, let's take this example. And in the last 4 years, the lessor and lessee can terminate the lease without any termination penalty. The lessee has done huge leasehold improvement. Then what happened? Just a minute. Tell me, what is the lease term in the first case? The contract is for 10 years. Both the parties have a right to terminate. Then termination period will not be considered. The lease term will be 6 years. Now again the same question. The contract is for 10 years. In the last 4 years, both the parties. It is not only. Both. Both lessor and lessee can terminate the lease without any termination penalty. The lessee has done huge leasehold improvement. What is the lease term?
6 years, sir.
The lease term will be 6 years only. Okay. I hope this is crystal clear to all of you, my dear friends. This is
Yes.
crystal clear to all of you. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Fantastic. Any question? Any doubt? No doubt. Thank you.
Sir, in the last case, if there is a penalty and also the lessee has done the leasehold improvement, in that case, sir, the both party has the right.
See, so basically enforceable rights should not be there, right? So for example, the lessor is free. The lessor has from the lessor perspective, he can terminate in the last 4 years. Okay, but from the lessee perspective, if lessee has to terminate, he has to bear the penalty, significant penalty. तो सेम ही हो गया ना कि सिर्फ लेसोर के पास राइट है. तो अगर लेसोर के पास राइट है टर्मिनेशन ऑप्शन का, तो क्या होगा? फ्रॉम द लेसी परस्पेक्टिव देयर इज नो राइट. तो लेसी विल कंसिडर द फुल पीरियड एज अ लीज टर्म. ओके. Yes, Aminathan? Clear?
Yes, sir. Sir, when the both party has the right to terminate, in that case, there is a penalty clause as well,
For both the parties.
Yeah, both the parties, as well as the lessee has done the significant improvement in the leasehold property. In that case, definitely the lessee cannot exercise the option, right? Not to exercise the option.
So in that case, you have to do the accounting like if lessee has a reasonable certainty to not to avail the termination option, in that case, that OTP is also going to be considered in the lease term. Right? OTP
Right.
is also going to be considered in the lease term. Okay.
Right, sir. Thank you.
Sir,
Reassessment of the lease. Yeah.
if lesser avail the option, if lesser only have the termination option and lesser avail the then what we do?
lessor only has the termination option and
The lessor avail the termination.
okay. Sorry, I haven't
तो
understood your question. ममता आपका question क्या है?
सर अगर हम मतलब 10 year का लीज टर्म है, लेसर हैज द ऑप्शन फॉर 4 year.
In the last 4 year, lessor can terminate, right? Only lessor. ठीक है?
Lease term will take the 10 years.
हाँ.
Lessee will take 10 years. But after 6 year, lesser avail the option. Then what will we do for next 4 year terms?
So, Mamta, first of all, we are identifying the lease term on the commencement date, right? So
Right.
you are doing the accounting on the commencement date. So let's say commencement date means today. Okay.
Okay.
Today, if lessor has the option from the lessee perspective, you will say that for me, there is no right to terminate. Okay. So for me as a lessee, the full period is a lease term. Okay. Now I have done the accounting of right of use asset and lease obligation as per 10 years. Okay.
Okay, sir.
But after 6 year, actually, the lessor has availed the option. Now, at the end of 6 year, I will have the balance of lease liability and right of use asset in my books of accounts. मेरे पास होगा right of
Right.
use का एक बैलेंस और लीज लाइबिलिटी का बैलेंस, तो मैं क्या करूंगा, उसको डी रिकॉग्नाइज करूंगा उसको, राइट? सो दैट वी विल कवर इन द सब्सिक्वेंट मेजरमेंट. राइट नाउ वी आर डिस्कसिंग इनिशियल मेजरमेंट के कॉन्सेप्ट्स,
Okay, sir.
right? So
Right.
initial measurement means measurement on the commencement date. Okay. So that will be the actual accounting. Okay. Right now we are doing factual accounting, fact based, factual. और उस टाइम पे क्या करेंगे, एक्चुअल अकाउंटिंग. आपको फैक्चुअल और एक्चुअल में डिफरेंस समझ में आता है? फैक्चुअल और एक्चुअल,
Yes,
फैक्चुअल
sir.
का मतलब फैक्ट बेस्ड. सो ऑन द कमेंसमेंट डेट you are doing fact based accounting, and at the time of subsequent measurement you will be doing actual accounting. टर्मिनेट उसने कर दिया तो आपको डी रिकॉग्नाइज करना पड़ेगा अपने एसेट और लाइबिलिटी को, पीएनएल में गेन और लॉस लेना पड़ेगा, राइट?
Right.
ओके, क्लियर? या. So friends, reassessment of the lease term. Of course, you need to reassess the lease term if the subsequent events are impacting your lease term. Subsequent events are impacting your lease term means, for example, when you have started your lease, means on the commencement date, there was an optional renewal period and the lessee was not reasonably certain to exercise the optional renewal period. But after 1 year, the lessee has done significant leasehold improvement. The lessee has not done the leasehold improvement when the lessee has taken the premise on a rent. Lessee has not done the lease improvement, but after 1 year, the lessee's business was growing like anything, and the lessee has decided to do the leasehold improvement, and lessee has done the significant leasehold improvement in the second year. So in the second year, there are circumstances, there are facts which are telling that, listen, man, now you are going to avail the renewal option, right? So standard says that if there is a significant event or significant change in circumstances, you need to reassess your lease term. So at the end of the first year or in the second year, what you will do? And the commencement date, for example, the non-cancelable period is 5 years. Optional termination period is 3. Optional renewal period is 3 years. So in the commencement date, you have only considered 5 year non-cancelable period because you are not reasonably certain to renew. But after 1 year, now you are reasonably certain that you are going to renew the lease. So this 3 year will be added to the lease term, and this right of use asset and leasehold accounting, lease liability accounting will also change. How it will be changed, we will cover, right? We have to cover that part. But the point is, if subsequently there is a significant event or significant change in the circumstances, you need to reassess your lease term. Okay. Revision of the lease term, in which circumstances, as I told you, if the lessee exercises an option not previously included in the entity's determination of the lease term. Option of renewal. Earlier at the commencement date, it was not there because reasonable certainty was not there. Now, reasonable certainty has come. If the lessee does not exercise an option previously included in the entity's determination of the lease term, okay, like termination option, an event occurs that contractually obliges the lessee to exercise an option not previously included in the entity's determination of the lease term. Earlier, the entity has decided that yes, I am going to avail the renewal option. Okay. After 2 years, COVID came. And what happened in COVID? What happened in COVID? People have started giving the work from home. And a lot of big companies have vacated their big buildings. Why? Because they have started giving work from home to their employees. They have started giving work from home to the employees, right? So friends, due to COVID, number one, the companies have started vacating the premises. They will not be needing the premises. So it means whatever non-cancelable period is there, they have to oblige to that period. Because even though they will vacate, they have to pay the full rent. But for sure, they are not going to renew. So if some event occurs, right, so which contractually obliges, some contract happens, some event happens, which change the lease term, so it has to be changed, right? It has to be reassessed. So this is what it is talking about. This is what it is talking about. Right? Yes. So friends, let's discuss the reassessment of exercise of lease extension option. Retail M. So discuss this illustration number 70. Retailer M enters into a 5-year lease for a building floor followed by 2 successive 5-year renewal option. What is the first 5? What is the primary lease term? What is the primary lease term?
5 years.
What is the secondary lease term? 2 lease term of 5 year. Means
Yes.
5 plus 5 plus 5. What is the total lease term? 15 year. But the primary period is 5 year and there are 2 successive renewal option. On the commencement date, retailer M is not reasonably certain to exercise the extension option. On the commencement date, retailer M is not reasonably certain to exercise the extension option. Means what is the lease term? What is the lease term on the commencement date?
5 years.
5 years.
5 years. Okay. 5 years is the lease term on the commencement date. At the end of the 3rd year, means 2 years are left. 1, 2, 3 completed, 2 are left. Retailer M extended to include another floor from year 4 due to business acquisition. Right? Retailer M extended to include another floor. So this retailer M, this lessee, business has grown. They have acquired one more business. And this lessee has also taken one more floor in the same building. Lessee has also taken one more floor on a lease basis. For this purpose, the lessee concludes a separate 7-year lease for an additional floor in the building already leased. So earlier, the lessee's lease for first floor is 5 years. Now, after 3 years, the lessee has entered into a contract for another floor for 7 years. Why? Because the business has grown. Okay. So 7 years. So tell me whether retailer M is required to assess the lease term in this case for this lease. There are 2 5-year renewal options.
Yes.
Yes,
Why?
sir.
Why?
Because he acquired another floor for 7 years from the 3rd years, which means definitely he will occupy for another 7 years from 3rd year, which means end of the 5th year, the remaining 5 years will be there. He will be possess that building. though 5 years that optional renewal period, definitely he will not, he will exercise to
Yes.
continue the bidding.
So basically, he has acquired a business, and in the same building, he has taken one more floor. So there are high chances, and it is for 7 years. So there are high chances that this lessee is going to avail the first renewal option of 5 years. If the lessee would like to, or the lessee wants to vacate this premises after 2 years, which is after completion of the 5 year, so lessee would not have taken the another floor for the 7 years. Okay, or lessee would have taken the another floor in some other area. If the lessee wants to vacate this, this indicate that the lessee, the retailer M is going to avail. The retailer M is going to avail the at least first renewal option. This lessee is going to avail the first renewal option. Okay. So 116 requires the lessee to reassess the lease term if there is a change in business decision of the company, which is directly relevant to exercising or not exercising an option to renew or extend the lease. In the given case, the retailer M at the end of the 3rd year has extended to include another floor in the same building on account of acquiring another company. As retailer M has entered into fresh lease of another floor for a 7-year term, it is reasonably certain to exercise the renewal option of original lease for a further 5-year term. Hence, retailer M will have to reassess the lease term at the end of the 3rd year. So at the end of the 3rd year for this existing floor also, what is my remaining lease term? 7 years.
7 years.
2 years of the remaining contract plus 5 years of the renewal option. Okay. So is that clear to everyone?
Clear.
I will also discuss the modification accounting later on. But as far as concept is concerned, is that clear or clear?
Clear.
Very much clear?
Very much clear.
Okay. Yes. So friends, company N has taken 10 vehicles on lease for an initial period of 5 years. Another question. Company N has taken 10 vehicles on lease for an initial period of 5 years with an extension option at the option of the lessee for a further period of 5 years at the same rental amount, at the discretion of the lessee. The remaining useful life of the vehicle as on the commencement date of the lease is 15 years. So on the commencement, 5 years is the primary lease period, 5 years is the secondary lease period, right? And what is the useful life on the date of commencement? The useful
15
life of the vehicle is
15
15
years.
years. 15 years. Okay. Company N has determined at the commencement date that it is reasonably certain to exercise the extension option, and hence it has taken a period of 10 years for the lease. Right? It was reasonably certain. So what was the lease term? 10 years. Non-cancelable 5 years plus 5 years is the optional renewal period. Okay. At the end of the 4th year, means non-cancelable period के 4th year के end में, there is an announcement by the government that all the cars of this particular model have to be discontinued from the road within 1 year due to the change in the pollution norms in the country. Will the lease term be reassessed in this case or not?
Yes.
Whether, so 4 years has already passed. In next 1 year, this model has to discontinue. So your initial non-cancelable period of 5 years will also over. So in that case, will you going to renew that 5-year renewal option?
Of course not.
Of course not. Of course not. Of course not. Right? Of course not. So in the given case, as per Ind AS 116, the announcement by the government to discontinue the use of underlying asset will prohibit the lessee from exercising the extension option that was already included in the non-cancelable period by company N, and hence company N will reassess the non-cancelable period to exclude the extension option of 5 years. Okay? Is that clear?
Yes, sir. Sir, in this case, the government announced on the 4th year, within a 1 year, they have to decommission this vehicle. See, can we consider as a 4 years as a lease term or plus 1 year, 5 years initial period?
No,
Because
5 years is the initial period. No, 5 years will be the lease term.
yeah, that I understood, sir. Within a 1 year, he has to discontinue that. In the 1 year period, he needs something to do that with that vehicle, right? I'm thinking that is the 4 years is the lease term.
So are you saying, for example, at the end of the fourth year, the government came with the announcement that they will discontinue the vehicle in the next 1 year. So most probably after 9 months, they will forfeit the vehicle, right? So the vehicle is not available for use in the last 3 months. That's what you are saying?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So most probably, definitely, if the vehicle is going to be submitted or hand over to the government after 9 months, so how it will get hand over? Of course, the lessor will take the possession of the vehicle. Lessor is the
Yes,
owner, and lessor will submit to the authorities. So in
yes, sir.
that case, that will become the lease period, 4 year, 9 months. So not remaining 1 year, it's remaining 9 months will become the lease period, right?
Right, sir. Right, sir. I'm thinking about the practicality.
Yes, yes. So friends, it's 8:32 now. Let's have a 10 minutes break and we will start at 8:42. Okay? Yes. Friends, now we came to future lease payments. So we completed 3 legs. Right to control the use, meaning of identified asset, and lease term. So now the fourth one is consideration. What is a consideration? Consideration means lease payment. And my dear friends, when I say lease payment, so lease payment from the perspective of lessee as well as lessor both. Right. First, we will discuss from the perspective of the lessee, that what is the meaning of lease payment from the perspective of lessee. Right. Fixed payment, including in substance fixed payment less any lease incentive, fixed payment. Right. For example, Sanjay has taken a building on a lease basis for 5 years. Every year, Sanjay has to pay a lease rent of 1 lakh rupee per annum. So what is my fixed payment? What is my fixed rent?
1 lakh.
1 lakh is the fixed rate. In substance, what is meant by in substance fixed payment? So there is an escalation clause which says that rent has to be increased by 10% every year. On the day one, when the contract was signed, it was very much clear that after every 1 year, 10% rent escalation will be there. So tell me, in substance, don't you think this escalation is also in substance fixed payment?
Yes.
Yeah, means today you are aware that if I am paying 1 lakh rupee in the first year, I am going to pay 1,10,000 in the second year, and 1,21,000 in the third year, 1,34,000 in the fourth year, and 1,46,000 in the fifth year, for example. Right? So this escalation is also in substance fixed payment, right? Less
Right.
any lease incentive. Sometimes what happens? Sometimes the lessor gives you some incentive. Okay. And friends, when the lessor gives you some incentive, so you are getting something from the lessor. When lessor is giving you some incentive, then it will become what? It will become lease incentive, right? So that lease incentive has to be deducted. From the lease payments, right? So fixed payment plus in substance fixed payment minus lease, minus what? Minus lease incentive. Okay. Fixed payment, in substance fixed payment minus lease incentive. Plus variable payments. That depend on an index or a rate, right? Measured using a prevailing rate at the measurement date. Sir, what is meant by variable payment? Tell me what is meant by variable payment. Variable payment means the payment which varies according to the future events. Okay. Variable payment means those payments which are depending upon happening or non-happening of some events. For example, so let's say, who is the participant? Ria. Let's say Ria has taken a factory on a lease basis. Okay. And you know how the rent was structured? So the landlord told Ria that, Ria, you have to pay 1 lakh rupees of fixed rent plus you have to pay 5% of the turnover as a rent. Okay. So whatever you will produce, whatever turnover you will incur, the 5% of the turnover you have to pay me as a rent. So if in the next year 10 lakh rupee is the turnover, then what is the 5% of 10 lakh? 50,000. If in the next year the turnover is 1 crore, then what is the 5%? 5 lakh. If in the third year there is zero turnover, then what is 5% of zero? Zero. So tell me, in this example, in the first year when the turnover is 10 lakh, right? And 5% comes out at 50,000. So in the first year, what is my fixed rent and what is my variable rent? 1 lakh rupees the fixed rent, Ria. Variable rent is 50,000 rupees. So variable rent means this 5% portion. This 5% portion is the variable rent, which is depending on the turnover. Correct? So whether that
Yes.
variable rent, which is depending on the production, depending on the sales, depending on the turnover, whether those variable rent has to be taken into consideration in the calculation of lease payment.
Yes.
Answer is no.
No, sir. We cannot do
Answer
that.
is no. Standard says that only you need to take those variable lease payment into consideration which are dependent on an index or a rate. When I say index or a rate, it is like wholesale price index, consumer price index. It is like a LIBOR, MIBOR. It is like an inflation rate, right? So if your variable lease payment is depending on an index or a rate, like your wholesale price index, your inflation index, or your inflation rate, okay, then those variable rent has to be taken into consideration for lease payment. But the variable lease payment depending on any other variable, not on an index or a rate, should not be taken into consideration for the purpose of computation of lease payment, right? And that index or rate needs to be seen on the commencement date. Third, exercise price of a purchase option. Exercise price of a purchase option. For example, Saminathan has entered into a lease contract for a car lease. And the lease term is 6 years. He is paying a lease rent of 1 lakh rupee every year. At the end of the lease term, the lease contract allows a purchase option to Saminathan. It allows a purchase option. And the exercise price was kept at 50,000 rupees for the purchase option. So, and Saminathan is reasonably certain that he is going to exercise this car after 6 years, because you know that after 6 years I'm getting the car at 50,000 rupees. It is hardly a money, right? So if there is a reasonable certainty to avail the purchase option, then exercise price will also become the lease payment. Exercise price will also be considered as a lease payment. Fourth, penalty for terminating the lease. Penalty is for terminating the lease. For example, there is a 10-year of lease contract. Okay. And after 6 years, if the lessee will terminate, lessee has to bear some penalty. After 6 years, if the lessee has to terminate, lessee has to bear the penalties. And it is reasonably certain that the lessee will terminate the lease on the commencement date, and hence lessee has taken the lease term of 6 years only, for example. So friends, in this case, what will happen in this case? In this case, the penalties for terminating the lease is also going to be taken into consideration in the lease payment. Okay. Residual value guarantees by the lessee. At times, the lessee also gives a residual value guarantee. What does it mean? For example, Saminathan has taken a car on a lease basis, and he is driving and using this car for 6 years. And the lessor is very tensed. Lessor is saying that you are the student Saminathan. I don't know how you will drive the car. Okay. Probably you will do the rash driving also. So, and lessor is keeping a lot of terms and conditions so that the car at the end of the 6 year will be in the maintained condition. So Saminathan told lessor not to worry. I am giving you a residual value guarantee that after 6 months, if you will sell the car, your car will get 75,000 rupees, right? So I will pay you 75,000 rupees. I am giving you a residual value guarantee. Or for example, when you sell the car in the market, if you will get 50,000 rupees, I will compensate you with 25,000 rupees. So I am giving the residual value guarantee. So friends, these are the component of the lease payments. right? From the lessee perspective. From the lessor perspective, all these 5 component plus, since lessor is the owner of the asset, from the lessor perspective, if this residual value guarantee is given by the lessor, given to the lessor by a lessee or any third party or any party related to the lessee, because lessor is the owner. So lessor को तो कोई भी गारंटी दे दे, लेसोर की लीज पेमेंट में तो वो भी आ जाएगा, राइट? सो अगर कोई स्क्रैप डीलर अगर वो भी गारंटी दे दे कि हाँ मिनिमम इतना पैसा दूंगा मैं, so that will also be considered under the lease payment. So from the perspective of lessor, in addition to the lessee, if the residual value guarantee is given by any third party or any party related or unrelated to the lessee, that will also be taken into consideration for the purpose of lease payment. First of all, let me give you some example and then I will come to the ICAI study material. Okay. So I hope my Excel is visible to everyone. Is it visible? Whether the Excel is visible or not visible?
Yes, sir. Now visible, sir.
Visible. So yes, coming to the lease payment. Lease payment. What lease payments includes, my dear friends? What lease payment includes? Lease payment includes. What is the inclusion of the lease payment?
Fixed payments.
Particulars. Then here I should write lessee. Here I should write lessor. Okay. Number 1. What is my lease payment? Fixed lease payment. Fixed lease payments. Fixed lease payments, right? Whether this fixed lease payment has to be considered for lessee? Answer is yes. For lessor also? For the lessor lease calculation also? Answer is yes. Fixed lease payments. Then after fixed lease payments, then
Variable lease payment.
variable lease payment or in substance fixed lease payment, not variable, in substance fixed lease payments. In substance fixed lease payments. Okay. Third. What third? Lease incentives. Lease incentives received from the lessor. Lease incentives. So lease incentives means it will reduce your lease payment, right? It will reduce your lease incentives. Then fourth. What is the fourth? What is the fourth one? Variable lease payments depending on the index or rate. Variable lease payments depending index or a rate, depending on the index or a rate, right? Variable lease payment depending on the index or a rate. Fifth, exercise price in case of a purchase option. Exercise price in case of a purchase option. If the purchase option is there, then you need to take this exercise price. Exercise price in case of a purchase option. Then termination penalties, if any. Termination penalties. If it is reasonably certain that the termination penalties will occur. Then what next?
Residual value guaranteed by the lessee.
Residual value guarantee by the lessee. Residual value guarantee by the lessee. Residual value guarantee by the lessee. Residual value guarantee by the lessee. Residual value guarantee by the lessee. Now, what last? So the lessee lease payment is over. What next? Residual value guarantee by the party related or unrelated to the lessee also. Residual value guarantee by the parties related or unrelated to the lessee. Unrelated to the lessee. In this case, from the lessee perspective, this will not be considered, because if somebody else is giving a guarantee, then it is not considered in the lease payment from the lessee perspective. But from the lessor perspective, it will also be covered. So this total will be considered as a lease payment. This total will be considered as a lease payment. Okay. This total will be considered as a lease payment. Whether this is clear, this lease payment is clear. Now, let me give you an example, and with the help of the example, I will show you the entire calculation of the lease payment and how this lease payment calculation is impacting your right of use asset and lease liability calculations. Okay, right? Friends, today I will over my class by 9:35. Okay, 9:30 or 9:35, and on Saturday I will take half an hour extra. Are you okay with that?
Okay, sir. We are okay with that.
Are you okay with that for Saturday,
Yes.
half an hour extra?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, fine, sir.
Yes. So friends, lease contract is for 5 years. Lease contract is for 5 years. Okay. Lease payment is 10,000 rupees every year. Escalation clause is 10% every year. Okay. Exercise price at the end of the lease term is 15,000 rupees. So lease payment is given 10,000 rupees every year. Escalation clause is also there, 10% every year. Exercise price at the end of the lease term is 15,000. And residual value guarantee is also given 10,000. Discount rate is 10%. Determine lease payment for every year in the books of lessee, and also compute the ROU asset and lease liability on the commencement date. On the commencement date, right? Shall I solve this question? Karun, isko solve.
Yes, sir.
Particulars. Particulars, then year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. Fixed payments. Fixed payments. What is the fixed payment in every year?
10,000.
10,000 rupees is the fixed payments every year. 10,000. Then in substance fixed payment. What is my in substance fixed payment? In substance.
Plus 10%.
Fixed.
Yep, every year 10% will be added.
Yes. In substance fixed payment. So what is the in substance fixed payment in the first year?
Zero.
In the first year, zero.
Zero.
In the first year, zero. What is the total rent? What is the total rent in the second year?
11,000. 10,000
multiplied by 110%, 11,000. So what is my in substance fixed payment in the
1,000.
second year? 1,000. Yes. So total payment is 11,000. So in substance fixed payment is 1,000. So what will be the payment in the third year? The rent will become 11,000 ka 110%. Right?
Yeah.
So what is my in substance fixed payment in the third year?
2,100.
2,100. So what is my lease payment in the fourth year? 13,310. What is my in substance fixed payment in the fourth year? 3,310. Right? And what is my fifth year in substance fixed payment? 4,641. Is that clear to everyone? These payments are clear to everyone or not clear? ये क्लियर है नहीं है? चित्रा, नेहा, ममता, इज दैट क्लियर?
Yes, sir.
या सो टोटल पेमेंट जो एस्केलेशन है, एस्केलेशन इज काइंड ऑफ इनसब्सटेंस फिक्स पेमेंट, राइट? फिक्स्ड पेमेंट इज 10,000 एंड आपका जो रिमेनिंग है दैट इज इनसब्सटेंस फिक्स पेमेंट. Now what else is there? Lease incentive. Is there any lease incentive in this question?
No, sir. No lease incentive.
No lease incentive is there in the question. No lease incentive. Okay. Is there any variable lease payment in this question?
No, sir.
Is there any exercise price in this question?
Yes, sir.
What is the exercise price?
15,000.
15,000.
And exercise price will come in which year?
Fifth year.
Fifth year. 15,000 is the exercise price. Fifth year. Okay. Why this placement is important? Why this lease payment has to be computed year on year basis? Why?
Because we do a time value money, sir, computation.
Because we'll do present value calculation. That is why it is very important. If I'll put 15,000 in the first year, the present value is much higher than the present value of payment made at the fifth year. Correct? There is a residual value guarantee also. What is the residual value guarantee?
10,000.
There is a termination penalty also. Termination penalty, yes. There is a termination penalty also. Yes, this is the termination penalty. Is there any termination penalty? No.
No, sir. In the question, no.
Not given in the question. And this is also given in the question. Residual value guarantee 10,000. So what is my annual lease payment? So let me compute my annual lease payment. This is my lease payments year by year. This is my lease payments. Yeah. This is my lease payment on a yearly basis. These are my lease payments. Now, friends, now what is my second part? What is the second question? Also compute the ROU asset and lease liability on the commencement date. So what is my present value factor? What is my discount rate?
10%.
So present value factor at the rate of 10%. At the rate of 10%. What is my present value factor for the first year? And this divided by 1.1. This divided by 1.1. So on and so forth. Right? This is the present value factor. Now, what is the present value? What is the present value?
Lease payment multiplied by factor.
Yes. This is the present value. This is the present value. So what is my total of the present value? My total of the present value is how much? Is equal to sum of this, right? 6978. The total of the present value. What is my accounting entry on the commencement date? What is my accounting entry? Write off.
ROU assets
Write
to
off
lease
assets.
liabilities.
Account debit to
Lease liability 60,978.
60,978. 60,978. Right of use asset account debit to lease liability. 6978. So have you understood the calculation? Have you understood the lease payment calculation? Have you understood the relevance, right, with the help of this example?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yeah? Is it completely clear to all of you guys?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
clear.
So let's
Crystal
discuss some questions from ICAI study material now. Yes. Entity M and lessor A. Entity M and lessor A enters into a 10-year lease of an office building for fixed annual lease payment of rupees 2 lakh. So what is the fixed lease payment?
2 lakhs.
2 lakh.
2 lakh. As per the terms of the lease agreement, annual fixed lease payments comprise 1,70,000 for rent and 30,000 for real estate taxes. 30,000 for real estate taxes. What are the fixed lease payment for the purpose of classifying the lease?
2 lakhs, sir.
Yeah, 2 lakhs, sir, in this case.
2 lakh, right? So the annual lease payment of 2 lakh, right? So because for me, for the lessee, this 2 lakh is the lease rental, right? Whether real estate taxes he is depositing for the account of real estate taxes or whatever. So the fixed payment will be 2 lakh, although real estate taxes are explicitly stated in the lease contract, but they do not represent a separate non-lease component as they do not provide a separate goods or service, right? The right to use the office building is the only component. The annual lease payment of 2 lakh represent payment related to that single lease component. Okay, right? Yes. In substance, fixed lease payment. Entity P enters into a 5-year lease for office space with entity Q. Entity P enters into a 5-year lease for office space with entity Q. The initial rent is 1 lakh per month. Rent increase by the greater of 1% of entity P's generated sales or 2% of the previous rental rate on each anniversary of the lease commencement date. What are the lease payment for the purpose of measuring lease liability? What are the lease payment for the purpose of measuring the lease liability? बताओ क्या होंगे लीज पेमेंट, कैसे निकालेंगे?
So,
How will
1
I
lakh,
compute?
1 lakh base rent and 2% of the previous rent.
Fixed rent is how much? Fixed rent is
1
1
lakh.
lakh, 1 lakh per month.
1 lakh is the fixed rent. Okay, 1 lakh is the fixed rent, and rent increase by the higher of 1% of entity's P generated sales. मतलब एंटिटी की सेल्स का 1% जो भी आएगा, whatever 1% of the turnover will come and 2% of the rent will come, the higher will become the escalation. The higher will become the escalation. So one thing is very clear. One thing is very clear. It has to be higher. अगर ये higher है तो minimum कितना होगा? 2% of the lease payment.
2%.
Minimum तो 2% lease payment होगा ही ना. So in this case, the lease payment for the purpose of classifying the lease are fixed monthly payment of 1 lakh plus the minimum annual increase of 2% of the previous rent. Entity P is required to pay no less than 2% increase regardless of the level of the sales activity. Therefore, the minimum level of increase is in substance fixed lease payment. And the remaining, for example, 1% of the sales is higher than the 2% of the rent. Then the remaining portion will go to the variable rent charged to the P&L. That variable rent will not considered in the lease payment. Have you understood it? Sir, payment तो है. मान लीजिए 2% of the lease payment comes out at 2,000 rupees and 1% of the sales comes out at 10,000 rupees. So that this entity P has to pay 8,000 rupees extra. तो खर्चा तो है. But whether that 8,000 will be that is a variable rent. But whether that variable rent has to be considered in the lease payment?
No, sir.
No.
Only the
No.
no, sir.
No, because it is not depending on index or rate. But
Yes.
the company has paid 8,000 rupees extra. So where that 8,000 will go? That 8,000 will go to P&L
P&L.
as a rent expense. As a rent expense. Right? मैंने आपको बताया था ना, last time भी मैंने आपको बताया था, I've told you last time that for example these airline companies, for their space which they have taken on the airport boarding counters, they are also charging it on a rent as a rent line item. Okay, as a rental expense. Okay, they are not using the right of use asset accounting. Why? Because it is not an identified asset. Okay. Yes. An entity enters into a 10-year leases of property. The lease payment for the first year is 1,000 rupees. The lease payment are linked to the consumer price index. Here, the lease payment is linked to a consumer price index. So if there is any variable lease payment, whether we will consider or not consider?
Yes.
We will consider, sir, because it's based on the index.
It is based on the index, right? The lease payment of the first year is 1000 rupees. Then the lease payment are linked to the CPI, that is not a floating interest rate. The consumer price index at the beginning of the first year is 100. The base is 100. Lease payment are updated at the end of every second year. Lease payments are updated at the end of every second year. Okay. So lease payments are updated at the end of every second year. At the end of year 1, the consumer price index is 105. At the end of year 1, consumer price index is 105. At the end of year 2, the consumer price index is 108. What should be included in the lease payments? What should be included in the lease payments? So friends, you have to see from the perspective of when you are at the commencement date, what will be the CPI, what will be the consumer price index in future. Okay. So at the lease commencement date, the lease payments are 1000 rupees per year for 10 years, right? So this is my fixed payment. The entity does not take into consideration the potential future changes at the index. At the end of the year 1, the payment have not changed and hence liability is not updated. At the end of year 2, when the lease payment change, the entity update the remaining 8 lease payment. You remember I told you that variable lease payment at the commencement date, the rate at the commencement date, it was written in the standard. I have shown you. मैंने आपको बताया था. एक मिनट. Prevailing on the commencement date.
Yes, sir.
Variable lease payments that depend on an index or a rate measured using a prevailing rate at measurement date, means commencement date. Variable lease payment that do not depend on an index or rate are not in substance fixed payment and hence are not included in the lease payment. They are charged to P&L as and when occurred, right? So this variable lease payment on the basis of index or rate has to be considered, which is prevailing on the date of measurement, on the date of commencement, right? So what it is saying? It is saying that at the lease commencement date, lease payment are 1000 rupees for next 10 years because you don't know what is the CPI in the future. But at the end of year 2, when the CPI become 108, then you need to update the lease rentals for the current year and future years. So the entity update the 8 lease payment to 1080. 1000 multiplied by 108, then divide by 100. 1080, right? Okay. Interest rate implicit in the lease. Interest rate implicit in the lease. Now coming to the question, sir, what is the interest rate? What is the interest rate? What is the discount rate which we need to take? Okay. Discount rate which we need to take. What is the discount rate which we need to take? क्या होगा डिस्काउंट रेट? बताओ क्या डिस्काउंट रेट हम करेंगे?
Incremental borrowing rate.
Discount rate is the interest rate implicit in the lease. First of all, you need to take a discount rate, which is the interest rate implicit in the lease. Discount rate. Concept. Discount rate. What is a discount rate? Discount rate is the interest rate implicit in the lease. Discount rate. Interest rate implicit in the lease means you need to take lessor IRR, lessor internal rate of return. You need to take lessor internal rate of return. What is meant by interest rate implicit in the lease? Interest rate implicit in the lease is the rate which equalizes the below equation. Means interest rate implicit in the lease is the rate which equalizes the below equation, Interest rate implicit in the lease is the rate which equalizes the below equation. And what is the equation? Your present value of lease payment to the lessor. I am talking about lessor internal rate of return. Your present value of the lease payment to the lessor plus present value of unguaranteed residual value should be equivalent to the fair value of the lease asset plus initial direct cost. Sir, what is that? Present value of lease payment. कौन सी लीज पेमेंट लेसोर की टू द लेसोर plus unguaranteed, because guaranteed part has been covered in the present value of the lease payments. Guaranteed part has been covered in the lease payment. Present value of lease payment to the lessor plus unguaranteed residual value. Unguaranteed residual value क्या होती है? जिसकी किसी ने गारंटी नहीं दी residual value. Should be equivalent to what? Should be equivalent to fair value of the lease asset. Fair value of the lease asset plus fair value of the lease asset plus initial direct cost. Initial direct cost. So friends, tell me one thing. I am the lessor and you are the lessee. Okay. I have purchased a building, or let's say I have a building and the fair value of the building is 1 crore rupees. Okay. And I have also spent around 10 lakh rupees on the initial direct cost. Means I have incurred some expenditure on that building, like brokerage, commission, stamp duty, registry, etc., etc. So whatever is my market value plus whatever I have spent, the total I have to recover. The total I have to recover. Yes or no? If
Yes.
I have an asset and I am giving this asset on a lease basis. अगर मेरे पास एक asset है और उसको मुझे लीज पे देकर उससे इनकम अर्न करनी है, तो मेरा क्या ऑब्जेक्टिव होगा? मैं कितना कमाऊं? मैं अपने रेंटल को कैसे सेट करूं? मैं कितना रेंटल मांगू? My present value of lease payment plus my residual value should be equivalent to my fair value of asset plus direct cost.
Yes,
कहने का ये मतलब है, what I'm trying to say, whatever rentals I will receive over the life of this asset should be equivalent. If I compute the present value, it should be equivalent to the fair value. Correct? So
Yes, sir.
I have to charge that discount rate. I have to charge that amount of interest, so that when I do the present value, when I do the unwinding of discount, it will give me the value equivalent to the fair value of the asset. But tell me one thing. While fixing the rental, what is the margin I am building? What is the interest I am charging? Are you privy to that as a lessee? क्या आपको पता होगा कि मैं कितना कमा रहा हूं as a lessee?
No, sir. Lessee does not aware, sir.
Lessee is not aware. Answer is no. So standard says that the first part, the first priority, if in the question interest rate implicit in the lease is given, मतलब अगर lessor का internal rate of return given है, then you have to use that rate as a discount rate. If not, if it is not given, generally it is not given, and in practical life it is not aware. If it is not given, in case interest rate implicit in the lease is not available to the lessee, then lessee needs to identify the incremental borrowing rate to the lessee, right? Then lessee को लेकिन अपना पता होगा what is the incremental borrowing rate. If I go and if I take an asset on a loan for 5 years, what bank will charge me the borrowing rate? What bank will charge me the interest rate? Of course, lessee can take a quotation also. Okay. So in case interest rate implicit in the lease is not available, then incremental borrowing rate, IBR, incremental borrowing rate of lessee shall be used. Okay. Then incremental borrowing rate of the lessee should be used. Okay. Incremental borrowing rate of the lessee should be used. Okay. This incremental borrowing rate of the lessee should be used. Clear? Is that clear? So this is the concept. This is the concept of discount rate. I hope it is very much clear to all of you. It is very much clear to all of you.
Yes, sir. Very much clear.
Yes. So, for example, A Limited has taken an office on a rental basis for rupees 1 lakh for 3 years from B Limited. B Limited IRR is 10%. So, what discount rate needs to be taken?
This IRR to be taken, sir, because the lesser is available.
This IRR to be taken. Now, for example, A Limited has taken an office on a rental basis for 1 lakh for 3 years from B Limited, and B Limited IRR is 10%. A Limited can take a loan for the same asset for a period of 3 years at 8%. Compute the ROU and lease liability at the commencement date. This is a part of your examination question. This came in your examination question. And I have extracted a part here. In this question, lessor IRR is also given and lessee IBR is also given. What you will take?
I will take lesser IRR. In this case,
Lesser.
10%.
Solution. In this question, lessor IRR and lessee's IBR both are given, and hence lessor IRR is taken for the purpose of computation of present value. For the purpose of computation of present value, right? So what is my year, my amount, and my PVF and my present value? What is the year? को कितने साल है? 3 years, ना?
2 years.
1, 2, 3. 3 years. 3 years. Okay. What is the amount? 1 lakh.
1 lakh.
The amount is 1 lakh. Right. What is present value factor? As per the lessor IRR, 10%.
10%.
You need to take at the rate of 10%. 1 divided by 1.1. Okay. So what is the ROU and lease liability? Your present value of lease liability is 248685. Your accounting entry is write off use asset account debit to
Lease liability.
lease liabilities. So in every calculation, I have shown you the lease liability and ROU calculation also, so that you will be able to understand end to end, right? Okay. So friends, this is what we considered. And there is a concept of initial direct cost also. So if you are a lessee, what sort of cost you will incur if you are a lessee? Tell me. Lease agreement, stamp duty,
Stamp
broker
duty.
commission, legal fee.
Maintenance cost.
Yes, legal fee, etc. So when you are taking a premises on a lease basis, so you are also taking a stamp duty cost, brokerage commission, legal charges, etc., right? So what is initial direct cost? Initial direct cost are the incremental cost which would have been incurred in connection with entering into a lease contract, right? Initial direct cost are incremental cost incurred, right? Incremental cost which have been incurred in connection with entering into a lease contract. For example, stamp duty, legal fees, brokerage, etc. Tell me when you will pay the brokerage. So I was searching for a house and the broker has shown me 10 flats. Then I have finalized the 10th flat. So when I finalize the 10th flat, then only I have given the brokerage to him. So this is an incremental cost. If I would not have finalized the flat, then I would not have paid the brokerage. Right or wrong?
Yes, right.
Yes, sir.
Correct. Legal fee. And when I have finalized the flat, so then I have to do the paperwork. So there is a stamp paper cost, there is a registry cost, there is a lawyer fee. All these are considered as the initial direct cost. So friends, if lessee is incurring any initial direct cost, that initial direct cost also needs to be added to the right of use asset. This is also required to be added to the right of use asset. Okay. So friends, in the next class, we will discuss the initial measurement of right of use asset and lease liability. So up to this part, we have covered all the legs of the lease contract: right to control the use, identified asset, lease term, and lease payments. And we have also discussed the concept of inception of the lease, commencement of the lease, uske baad discount rate, then initial direct cost. So we have covered all these concepts today, right? Any doubt in any concept which I have covered today? Any doubt in any concept?
Sir, this initial direct cost is pertaining to the lessee accounting. When there is a lessor accounting, when he incurred some cost, no.
Yes. So that will. So Saminathan. So for example, for lessor, it is a PPE. You are a lessor. So when you will recognize this initial direct cost? You will recognize the initial direct cost when you have purchased the asset, that will be added to the PPE cost.
Correct, sir.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Is that clear or not clear? Guys, is that clear or not clear?
Clear, sir.
Yes,
Very
sir.
much clear?
Very much.
Very much? Okay. Any doubt, any question on the concept which we have covered? We have covered in detail the concept of lease term. What is lease term? Non-cancelable period plus rent-free period plus optional renewal period plus optional termination period. Then we did some example also, right? Then we have covered the concept of what? Termination right. The concept of termination right we have also covered. याद रहेगा टर्मिनेशन राइट का कॉन्सेप्ट?
Yes,
नहीं
sir.
याद रहेगा तो इसको रिवाइज कर लेना, बस इतना पढ़ लेना, याद हो जाएगा. ओके. Then lease payment, fixed lease payment plus in substance fixed payment less lease incentive plus variable lease payment depending on an index or a rate plus exercise price plus termination penalty plus residual value guarantee by the lessee. For the lessor, one more item: residual value guarantee by the parties related or unrelated to the lessee. Okay. So this is the things which we have discussed. Then discount rate. For discount rate, you have to take lessor IRR. If lessor IRR is not available, then lessor IBR you need to take. Lessor IBR you need to take. Okay. Then initial direct cost, we have also discussed the implication, the treatment we will discuss in the next class. Okay. Thank you so much, friends. Thank you so much. And I'm really happy when I got the feedback even on my email. So in the last 7 days, almost 10 to 15 students have given the feedback. And what feedback they have given? They have given the feedback about these classes. They told that these classes are like blessings to them who are not able to afford the fees, the fees like 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 kind of a fees. Second, these are the virtual classes, and they also written that the kind of concepts which was discussed in these classes, and it is not more than a private coaching type. Okay. So friends, I would recommend all of you to continue these classes, and I would also recommend all of you to let your friends also know to attend these classes. Let your friends know to attend these classes as well. Okay. So thank you so much, friends. As told you, in the next class, I will take half an hour more. Okay. Please be ready. Please be ready on Saturday. I'll take half an hour more, and let's call out the day today. Thank you so much. Have a safe Have a happy day and have a safe day. Thank you so much. Be safe, be happy. Bye. Take care.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, session is over for the day. Thank you.